This is a 6.7 bar crusher. It's the last boat I'll have, according to the wife.
Right.
Unless the next one's going to be a row boat.
How many have you had so far?
This is boat number probably 5. Out of the 5, I've had 3 tinnies, 3 aluminium, and fiberglass and myself don't go down real well together because I'm a bit hard on them. I'm not real big on looking after fiberglass. Aluminium, a lot tougher, less maintenance. You know, the only thing that'll kill an aluminium boat is corrosion.
Yeah.
So.
And is that a big problem with boats? The alloy boats?
I believe it is. The paint had faded, oxidised, and there was the start of the corrosion. And it seemed the more I looked, the more there was.
Yeah. Just
starting, little bits and pieces here and there. And I thought, oh, here we go.
Yeah, here we go again.
Here we go again. So I thought, no. And I must admit, it was getting a little bit depressing. I thought, I'll never be able to keep pace with all the small bits and pieces. And washing it is one thing, but keeping the paint in good nick, it's very hard.
So just a high maintenance headache.
Well, it is. If you can just let it go, but in another 4 years' time, there's going to be holes. There's wherever there's a screw or a pop rivet, it's just going to disappear around the screw hole.
Yeah, so it's basically galvanic reaction between differing metals, and the reaction with the paint and
everything you've got bolted down. I mean, even down to the rod holders. The rod holders are an alloy in alloy, and they were terrible. They were corroded up, and it was even at the stage where I thought, oh, I'll have to take them out and replace them. They were, they had a clear coating over them, but the clear coating seemed to be worse. It held the corrosion, and it just got worse and worse.
Yeah. I mean, they don't look too bad at the moment from the untrained eye,
but they're pretty good.
John, how old is your boat now?
The boat's a bit over 8 years old. I purchased it when it was 4 years old, and it hadn't been looked after all that well. And after the first few months, I noticed more and more corrosion around the gunnels in different places, around the bottom of the windscreen there, and I thought, here we go again. I've had an aluminium boat before. I've watched them disappear.
When you say disappear, John, what exactly happens to these boats?
You just can't keep pace with the corrosion. Once it starts, it just doesn't stop. It eats underneath the edge of the paintwork. It bites into the metal, and you get a white powder, and the paint starts to lift and bubble, and it.
Is that really a drama if the paint's bubbling? I mean, it doesn't look very good,
but it eats holes through the aluminium sooner or later.
And a hole in a boat's probably not a good thing.
Well, no, and look, they're an expensive item.
Yes.
And to look after it, I thought, well, it was worth trying anything to try and save it, rather than go through the pain that I did on the last 2 boats to try and keep them in good condition.
So what happened to your last 2 boats? What was the eventual outcome of this corrosion?
The first one, we basically gave up on chasing the corrosion and got rid of it. The second boat, I had that for close on 20 years, and every season it was a go round with a scraper, a wire brush, and a paint, and just keep working at all the corrosion spots and trying to stop them. But it worked to a certain degree. The hours put in to try and keep it that way.
Yeah. So lots of maintenance, lots of elbow grease, lots of headaches.
Yeah. And it was time for an update, and I wanted a better boat, and I've definitely got one, but I want to keep it.
Yeah.
I figured this would be my last blue water boat, and it's worth the expense to save it, and it certainly has done the trick.
So what were the major issues you had with corrosion within the boat? You were talking about back down
Oh,
here?
down underneath at the stern, where the water used to sit in the back corners inside. It had eaten all the paint away, and the corrosion had eaten in for a rather large area, down around all the way across the back. And it's just the fact that the salt water would sit there.
Yeah.
And even when you washed it down, you'd have the fresh water there. So I was convinced that when I first got it, that it would be a couple of years and I would basically have to do a major paint job.
Yeah.
Not so much on the whole paint seemed pretty good, but all the externals, just everywhere where there was a screw, a pop rivet, I thought this all going to have to be stripped off. All the fittings taken out and redone. The last boats, I lost all the rod holders where they're fastened down. They ate away around them, and I thought, well, we're going to have to start all over again.
You're talking before about the buttons where your boat cover hooks on.
Yeah, that was done with the chap that did the cover. He fitted it all up, and so he's just drilled a hole, put a self tapper in, all underneath the gunnel, underneath the edge here, and I had visions of I've had this before. They fall out. Yeah. They just eat away. They fall out. You've got brass.
So the whole button drops away.
The whole button drops out.
Yeah, and you get a hole in the boat.
Yeah, well, it's either take it in and get all the holes welded up and re-drilled, and you start from scratch. But even when you weld up a hole in an aluminium boat, it seems like the salt gets in into the metal, and it just doesn't stop. The porosity just keeps going. Yeah.
So why haven't you gone through and cleaned up all these areas, John, and done a proper job on them?
No, well, I wanted to see. As I said to you, Jeff, I was grasping at straws. I was looking for a way to try and save the boat without having to do major paint work. Simple as that. But it seemed, on past experience on the last two boats, every time I'd clean up a patch of corrosion, the amount of work you had to put into it to maintain it was you'd have to clean it down, etch prime it, make sure that you got all the corrosion out, etch prime it, paint it, and then the corrosion would start outside that area. So it just seemed like...
So you're chasing your tail the whole time?
Chasing your tail the entire time.
Yeah.
And I really didn't want to go through that again. Well, we hooked the system up a bit over 2 years now.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're probably 2.5 years, I suppose. And I honestly haven't touched a thing since. I did a couple of temporary repairs just to, as I say, had my doubts.
Yeah.
I thought I'm not going to let it get any further, just in case it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that's being honest about the system. I thought, well, I'm not going to let it go just in case.
Yeah. So you're confident now that if you went back to everything now, did the job properly, cleaned everything properly, etch primed it, and put the correct paint over it, that's going to... I'm ready.
I think I spoke to you 6 months ago and said, look, I'm very, very confident that this is working great, and I was all set to start knocking off all the little bits of corrosion, give it a quick clean up, and do temporary, minor paint repairs. Yeah. Rather than what I thought was going to happen, and that was going to be major paint work. Yeah. And honestly, I've repainted boats before, and it doesn't work. It seems like the salt eats into the paint. Yeah. You go over it, and next thing you've got bubbles and blisters and more corrosion. So the paintwork has just gotten better and better over the last 2 years. As I say, initially very, very oxidised, very powdery, and
so boats the same as this in similar vintage. So what sort of condition are you seeing those in? You do a lot of fishing comps, and
I do the fishing comps, and I've had a look at the other boats, and there's some that are 3-4 year old, even same brands, and they say the paint is the problem. Well, it's not the paint. It's you get a little scratch, and you just only got to knock a little bit of paint off.
Yeah. And
next minute the salt gets in, and the corrosion starts.
And the paint now, I see if I rub my hand over there, it seems clean.
It has not had one skerrick of polish. All it gets is a wash. And most of the time it's just water, just fresh water, but it's just getting shinier by the day.
Yeah, so the paint it's slowed the oxidation, and I see the paint now has got quite a sheen on it.
It has.
Yeah.
When we first got it, as I say, you run your hand over it and it was white.
Yeah.
And this is just, it doesn't get washed all the time. If we're going out 2 days in a row, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's
so you've used no polish.
Not a skerrick of polish on it.
Yeah.
Not so much as one bit. No cutters. It's just soap and a brush. Everyone seems to think I polish it.
Yeah.
Trust me, I don't. I just don't have that much time.
Yeah.
I want to go and use it.
Yeah.
You know, and if you spend more time, looking after it than what you do using it, then you might as well get rid of it.
Yeah.
No, well, since we've put the system on, we've kept a close eye on it. As I say, originally I thought, what am I going to do to try and save this one? And I thought, I'll have to strip this right down, all the corrosion, and start from scratch, etch, prime, do the whole lot to try and save it. Well, I didn't. I got on to the anti-corrosion system, and we fitted it up. And from that moment on, we've kept a close watch. Every 6 months or so, take a photo of the same spots, and the corrosion has stopped. The corrosion's still there, but it hasn't moved.
Yeah.
It has just stopped dead in its
basically
tracks.
stabilised that area.
It's static. It's just it's been great. I purposely haven't scraped quite a few spots off and repainted. Simply to see that it has stopped, and the size of the corrosion has remained exactly the same, hasn't grown. The paint hasn't bubbled up. Like normally it would lift higher and higher with the corrosion underneath the paint.
To be fair to say that you're happy with the results you've seen?
Admittedly, I was originally a little bit sceptical. And so that's why I did some of the temporary repairs. I thought, well, I'm not going to let them get any further till I get out of control.
Yep.
So I fixed up a few spots. As I say, it was new to me. I had no evidence on boats that it would work.
Yeah.
We'll give it a shot. Very happy.
So you're confident now that if you go ahead and clean those areas properly, etch, prime and paint them correctly, that should solve the problem.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
As I say, I have only left the existing corrosion over the last 3 years, just to see that it has stopped, and it has. They have not moved. So now I'm that confident. I'm more than happy to just give them a clean off, same deal, spray them with the can, and it'll stay that way.
Yeah.
So no, very, very happy. I really want to look after this one.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money to replace. I don't want to replace it. I want to keep this one. I've set it out how I want it. It does everything I want.
It'd take you a while to get it exactly as you would want it, wouldn't it? With everything in the right place and the right equipment.
Yep. And I couldn't afford to replace it.
Yeah.
So it's simple maths. It's worthwhile looking after. I know there was no promises at that stage, but I thought this is worth a try. And I know this might sound like a testimonial, but it's not intended that way. This is purely a great system that is just stopped. I haven't touched a lot of the corrosion spots, but we have taken photos every 6 months. Hasn't moved. It's become less and less. It's stopped. Everything's the paint's looking shinier. All the alloy is coming up great. I haven't found any new areas. There's as I say, there's a couple of areas that I've left just to see if the system's working, and well, I'm convinced that it's working great.